Hey everyone, CJF Hotshot here, and yes, we're finally doing Flash content again, and not just like the VAs that I post on here every now and often. This is an actual, full-length video just about a Flash story. Isn't it brilliant? I know, right? So, let's start off with probably the most iconic Flash story ever to be conceived, and this is not hyperbole. Often, if you ask fans who read Flash comics religiously, they'll either tell you that this story is their favourite, or this story is the most important to the mythos, and I'd agree it is very, very important. And this is, of course, The Flash, The Return of Barry Allen, or as Mark Waid dubs it in his afterword for The Flash Mark Waid Book 2, the 614 to Hell. So, what makes this story so special? Is the title a spoiler? Well, kind of. Mark Waid and Brian Augustin's mission with The Flash Return of Barry Allen was to make people realize that Barry was dead for good. That Wally was the Flash now, and they needed to find ways to get fans to like Wally, because whilst he was a charming persona and pretty much the definition of a legacy character, he still hadn't stepped into his role fully in terms of equaling Barry in power and overall trust with the citizens of Keystone City. So, of course, Waid and Augustin put all their eggs in the basket. They brought back Jay Garrick in the Christmas special. And then, just as things start to wind down, Barry Allen returns. And Barry's return kind of gives Wally an identity crisis. Wally has to, search for himself, and ultimately, he does push on, regardless of Barry being back. But he also ends up trusting Barry a little too early. He basically had a hunch at the start of the story saying, what if this isn't Barry? What if this isn't Barry? And Hal Jordan, with his ring, literally said, nah, you're cool, Wally. Barry's telling the truth. But throughout the story, you kind of see Wally's not necessarily descent to madness, but almost as if he doesn't trust himself anymore. That he hangs on Barry's side. And that bites him in the ass. When he tries to rely on Barry to get out, Barry pretty much pushes him aside, reclaims the mantle of the one and only Flash, and disregards Wally and Jay. And this is, of course, because Barry ends up being Professor Zoom. Wally ends up emotionally defeated, pretty much swearing to never put on the suit again. And this, as the title suggests, it was the most tragic day in the life of Wally West. He put all of his trust into his boyhood hero, and for the first time in the history of forever, it seemed like his boyhood hero let him down after all that he'd done to honor him. But Jay Garrick also suspected that Barry wasn't telling the truth. So he recruited the old guard, the boys, Max Mercury and Johnny Quick, to fight this renegade Flash. And they put up their fight. They end up losing because stamina, mainly. And even Hal Jordan gets in on the action. This is a crossover with Green Lantern. Just before Emerald Twilight. This is just before Hal goes rogue. And just before Hal goes rogue, he fights a rogue version of his best friend, which must be disheartening for him. And of course, for this being just before Emerald Twilight, this is when the world needs heroes. This is pretty much in the twilight of Death of Superman, I think. Superman's still dead, and all of these other Supermen are trying to fill a spot. The same thing could be said to be happening in The Flash, where Wally seems dead and Barry's trying to take all of the glory. But then Wally finds out the secret of Barry Allen. The fact that he isn't Barry Allen at all. He's Professor Zoom. He's Eobard Thawne. And it all culminates into this epic action sequence of high-stakes drama. And Wally even gets some lecturing by the old guard. Johnny Quick doesn't really say much. Jay Garrick trusts Wally with his heart and even calls him the Flash for the first time, as if Jay is the audience's surrogate. Especially the surrogate of people who like the book. And then he turns to the viewer and just says, Wally's the Flash now. Deal with it. And that is immense. And then we even get setups for stories to come, like my favourite story, Terminal Velocity, say, with Max Mercury saying, there is a bit more beyond there's a bit more of our powers beyond what we know. And that brings up the perfect setup to the rest of Mark Waid's run. It's astonishing, I think. And what makes it even greater is that this is the end of an era for Wally West. This is the start of when Wally West really trusts himself as the Flash. Not necessarily as a hero, but he trusts himself to carry on Barry Allen's example. He trusts himself to carry on Jay Garrick's example of what the Flash pretty much should be. And he's thrown away all this doubt, and he slowly starts climbing up the power ladder throughout this arc and Back on Track and pretty much the next few arcs until Terminal Velocity, where he gets a huge boost. And this is astonishing to see, in my opinion, because this is Wally starting to forge himself. This is the Wally West I know and love, and he was there to stay forever, and that's lovely. And with this era going away, also shows the art team having a bit of a shift. Greg Laroche leaves the book after issue 79, pulling in a triple shift, mind you. He did 3 issues in one. This was a 60-pager, and Mark Waid called this the greatest work Greg Laroche has ever done, and I am inclined to agree. If nothing else, just because it has the greatest moments, the You're No Barry Allen moment in particular. It really pays off, and of course, like, it pays off in droves. I'm not about to let this bastard overtake Barry Allen. You know, it's just this bastard, of course, being Eobard Thawne, but it's just like, these action sequences are astonishing. And Laroche left the Flash on a high note. Now the Flash could be more centered around the romance between Wally and Linda throughout the next few arcs, Back on Track and Terminal Velocity, etc. And of course, with Laroche gone, a new art team of Mike Wieringo and Jose Marzan Jr. took up the reins. And boy, did they do good. I love Mike Wieringo, man. But that's all for another day. I hope you kind of understand why Flash Return of Barry Allen is very big now in terms of like fan popularity, because it is the turning point of the Flash mythos. Before Return of Barry Allen, Mark Waid didn't really have much of a plan, like much of an ongoing plan with the Flash. He just did it story to story, issue by issue. But with Return of Barry Allen, he sets up future plans in motion for Terminal Velocity and Back on Track. And even though Waid says the mistake of not revealing Eobard, probably Waid didn't reveal Eobard early enough. Like, he didn't establish that Eobard existed. We kind of, is almost a Mandela effect where the audience does know that Eobard's there, because this arc was for long-time Flash readers. And it pays off for the people that it needed to pay off for. And that's lovely. Even with the one mistake, this arc pretty much does it flawlessly. It unleashes all of its cards where it needs to, and leaves it off on an incredible note. My name is Wally West, and I'm the Flash. The future belongs to me. See you in a bit, y'all.